Oh my gosh, welcome to the Benchwarmer and a Brew. My name is Josh Johnson. I am your host, and today we're just going to hop right into it. I wanted to start a show talking about two things that I really enjoy. One of them is beer. I am a beer connoisseur. I love beer. It's a secret passion of mine, and also I love talking about sports. Um, I frequently am having conversations with my friends, arguing about different things happening in the sports world, and I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna do it in a podcast. I'm just gonna make it. I'm gonna see what happens, and we'll go from there. So today, I'm gonna try and have a different brew each episode. But today we have what do we have back here? We have Sycamore Southern Girl. I picked this up at the store today. It is a Belgian white. It is very smooth, very nice. It has a little bit of a hoppy flavor profile. It is quite nice. I think it was a little bit more expensive. I think I paid $10 for a 4 pack of this, but that is quite nice. That is the brew for today, Sycamore Southern Girl. And now we're going to hop into the first topic of the day, and that is the news that kind of I think everybody was expecting in the NFL. And it is a little bit sad for me. It's a little bit personal, but Phillip Rivers, the longtime quarterback of the Los Angeles Chargers, formerly the San Diego Chargers, and this past year with the Indianapolis Colts, has retired. And I don't think that was something that we didn't see coming as fans and people in the media. I think we're all sort of projecting that he would retire at the end of the year, but it still is a little bit sad. I am a massive NC State fan, and I think that's where my personal affinity for Phillip Rivers comes in. NC State is not necessarily a football powerhouse, and Phillip Rivers led NC State in 2002 to the only 11 win season we ever had. So, if you can see right here, you can tell State fan. I love Phillip Rivers. I love Russell Wilson. Those are my guys. But Phillip is now done. He's hanging it up. He said that he can now take time to start a family with his wife, which I thought was incredible. But last year, he accepted a job at St. Michael Catholic School in Alabama to coach them when he retired, and now that will be this coming season down there. Phillip Rivers has had a Hall of Fame career. Um, I think people have argued whether or not he would be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And that's been something that's been a divisive argument on either side because there's not the definitive, oh, yeah, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think we would say with Ben Roethlisberger, who came in the same year with Phillip, yeah, for sure. Ben is going to be a Hall of Famer. But Ben has 2 rings. And Eli Manning, who came in that same class, also had 2 rings. In fact, Eli Manning was traded for Phillip Rivers on draft night. Phillip Rivers was drafted by the New York Giants and traded to the Chargers on draft night. So they were traded for each other. And Eli Manning finished his career with 2 rings. Now, Phillip has more passing yards, more passing touchdowns than both Big Ben and Eli Manning, but if we were to like look at that on a piece of paper, we'd say, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense because Big Ben is better. I would say Phillip is better than Eli, but if you were to rank them in a tier of 3, you would probably not put Phillip Rivers above Ben Roethlisberger. But Phillip is a first ballot Hall of Famer in my mind. He's 5th all time in passing yards. He finished his career with 63,000 passing yards and 421 touchdowns. Both of those are good for 5th all time. Now, there is another element to this argument that Phillip is a Hall of Famer. We're in an era now of passing the football like none that has ever existed in the history of the NFL before. Um, a lot of the top guys in terms of passing yardage are players that have played in my lifetime. I was born in 1998, so this is recent. Shannon Sharp had his best year of football and then retired like 3 years later in 1998. So I am recent. And, Peyton Manning, who at one point held the most passing yards, it's ultimately, it's going to be Tom Brady, it's going to be Drew Brees, it's going to be, they're going to be number one and number two. Peyton Manning is going to be in there, and Phillip Rivers is in there. And, those guys all played recently. And so you have to wonder, how valuable are those numbers that Phillip Rivers put up? So if we're to look at players playing right now that you would think are better than Phillip, that will probably break his records, you got to think of players like Patrick Mahomes. I think we would all agree that he's probably, barring some kind of injury or freak incident, going to surpass 63,000 yards passing in his career. You got to think that he's going to approach Drew Brees, Tom Brady level, where he's going to be around that 80,000 yard range, just because he's been so good so quick. You got to think that if Russell Wilson continues on his upward trajectory, he's been passing much more frequently in recent years. You got to think that he's probably also going to be in that same conversation as well for that 70-ish thousand yard passing in his career, assuming he plays to what he said in the past that he wants to play. He wants to play until he's 45 years old. If he can stay healthy, if he can do that, if he can follow the Tom Brady blueprint, you got to think that he probably also is going to get in that 75,000 range. And then another quarterback would be Deshaun Watson as well. He right now at 25 has almost 15,000 passing yards, but you got to think, as efficient as he is, and he's just now getting into his prime. In this past season, he passed for 4,800 yards. You got to think, if he's just passing 4,300 yards every season when he is 40 years old, in 15 more seasons, he's going to be around that 70 to 75,000 passing yard range. So I don't know how valuable Phillip Rivers' numbers are. I think that he has benefited from being in an era of players who have passed the ball a ton, but I don't know that we can knock that from him, because at the time today, at the time of his retiring, January 20th, 2021, he is fifth all time in both passing yards and passing touchdowns. That's got to mean something. If you're fifth overall in the history of the NFL in two major categories for your position, that's got to count for something. That's got to say, okay, you're going to be on that Hall of Fame first ballot. So you have to think, okay, he never won a Super Bowl. He doesn't have those rings, but he's got numbers. And the age-old argument with Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady has been, well, Rodgers doesn't have the rings, but he's got the numbers. And even then, it's a stretch, because Tom Brady is going to have the career passing yards and career passing touchdowns marks. But, I think if you look at the eye test, you say, well, Aaron Rodgers is more talented. So all of that to say, Phillip Rivers deserves to be on first ballot Hall of Fame. And, you can say, oh, no, Josh, that's ridiculous. There's quarterbacks that are so much better than him. He was never the best in his era. Look at the numbers. He's fifth all time in both passing yards, passing touchdowns. I think that's got to count for something. But I think maybe there's some bias in there. I'm willing to admit that maybe there's a little bit of bias. I have an affinity for Phillip Rivers as a football player. He played at NC State. That, I don't really have a team necessarily in the NFL. I like the Seahawks. I like Russell Wilson, but I don't know if I've got a team in the NFL. But I was raised on NC State Wolfpack football, and that's kind of been a miserable existence for me in my lifetime. I've seen multiple 3-9 seasons, and that's tough. Like, it is very difficult to be a fan of a football team when they are 3-9 and getting drubbed by Clemson and North Carolina every year. Like, that's no fun. Those are teams that you got to beat, and it's brutal. It's so awful watching that. But Phillip Rivers in 2002, 4 years after I was born, led NC State to an 11-win season, the only 11-win season our football program has ever had. So, if you're thinking about the cap, the best that your program can do on a consistent basis, for NC State, it's about 9 wins. And he got us to 11. And that year we beat Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl in 2002. And I was there as a 4-year-old little tyke, wearing my little Phillip Rivers jersey, stoked out of my mind, as much as a 4-year-old can be, so excited that, we had beaten Notre Dame. NC State doesn't beat Notre Dame. NC State doesn't beat Clemson. Those kind of traditional powerhouses, we just don't beat them. So Phillip Rivers, and that year we had I think it was Torrey Holt and Jericho Cotchery. That year we beat Notre Dame. We also beat Florida State when they were number 1 in the country that year. That kind of thing does not happen at NC State. And Phillip Rivers elevated that football program to a level that it hadn't been before. It was a 7-win max football program before Phillip Rivers got there. And he was an unheralded, I think he was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. He was not anything special. And then he threw for 14,000 yards in college, started all 4 years. Goes to the NFL, first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that there's a special place in my heart for Phillip Rivers. And he has done things that I think now are somewhat par for the course in the NFL in terms of passing for that amount of yardage. But he did things that endeared me to him growing up. And so I think I'll always have a special place in my heart for Phillip Rivers. So there has been a huge noteworthy story recently, the past week and a half in the NFL, as coaches are getting hired and teams are kind of filling out their rosters and getting ready for 2021. There's one team that has not hired a coach yet, and there's a big question mark surrounding this team. And the Houston Texans have a Deshaun Watson problem. They have an unhappy quarterback in Houston, and I think all signs are pointing to the fact that Deshaun Watson will not be playing for the Houston Texans again. Adam Schefter tweeted a couple of days ago that many people within the Houston Texans organization believe that Deshaun Watson is gone, that he's not coming back in 2022 after he passed for 4,800 yards and 33 touchdowns, had a brilliant season. I mean, brilliant. And they went 4-12. He's gone. So shame on the Houston Texans. They have all kinds of dysfunction going on in Houston right now. You cannot lose a quarterback this good. Like, this is a Patrick Mahomes level player that, when he was getting his contract last year, Patrick Mahomes, when he signed that $500 million contract, people were saying, it does not matter what you pay him. Back up the Brinks truck, pay him whatever he asked for, because he's worth it. Deshaun Watson is that level player right now in these trade scenarios that are popping up. Like Patrick Mahomes, you could trade anything for Deshaun Watson and it would be worth it. And now Houston is got this predicament where not only did you lose your star quarterback, the franchise quarterback, the cornerstone of your organization, now you've got to trade him and recoup something for him, because, if you go into 2022 next season and he holds out, what does that do for your organization? What does that do for that locker room to have their leader hold out? What does J.J. Watt do if he's still on the roster and Deshaun Watson is holding out? And you also got to think that if Deshaun's gone, J.J. Watt is going to press to be cut. He said, get me out of here. Because you could tell, super frustrated throughout the season. J.J. Watt is not a loser. So you've got a lot of issues in the Houston organization. And on top of that, they get to decide. Their new general manager, Nick Caserio, gets to decide, what is Deshaun Watson worth? Now, there's a few trade scenarios that are out there that are floating around that I think are interesting. The first one, it might be the one that's probably leading headlines right now. It's the New York Jets. They've got draft capital for years. They have a boatload of first-round picks this year and next year. They have 2 first-round picks this year, 2 first-round picks next year. They just hired 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. Many people around the league are saying that that is a home run, knock it out of the park higher, and that he is going to completely revamp the culture there in the Jets organization. And they need that because Adam Gase, you can see throughout his tenure, wherever he's been poor for culture. Ryan Tannehill left the Dolphins, and he went 33-7 this year, 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. So, you know, wherever Adam Gase goes, the place he was previously gets better. And I think the Jets will instantly be better this year just because Adam Gase is gone and Robert Saleh replaces him. But also, they have the ability to add an influx of talent. They have a whole bunch of cap space. I think they have 70 million in cap space. They've got all these draft picks. They have the ability to move and make things happen. This could be a quick rebuild for the Jets. If they hit on 2 of their 4 first round picks in the next 2 years, they get 2 studs. You could get 2 cornerstone players on maybe it doesn't matter. You get 2 cornerstone players out of those picks. That's got to be you got to think that's worst case scenario. You have to think that of all the picks that Joe Douglas over there has accumulated, that he's going to hit on several of them. And a lot of people are saying that he's capable. He's not playing around. He knows what he wants to do, and he's built up this rebuild through draft capital and free agency. He's going to make the moves. Now the Jets could trade both their first-round picks this year. They could trade a first-round pick next year. And Sam Darnold, their quarterback this past season, who was horrendous, but many people think he still has a whole lot of potential, and it was just because of coaching. So you could include Sam Darnold, 2 first-round picks this year, a first-round pick next year, and get Deshaun Watson. Now, many people think that Joe Douglas won't pull the trigger on that, and I don't know why you wouldn't, because the Jets need help at a lot of different places, but Deshaun Watson is 25 years old, and if you just will get a culture around the Jets organization, they'll be at a bare minimum a 5-win team next year. Now, that's not good, but a 5-win team is already better than what Deshaun Watson had in Houston. Now, from what people are saying, Robert Saleh is that guy to give them a culture shift that's going to push them into 2022, and they're going to be in a much better place. That defense pretty much got 2 wins for them at the end of the season, and that was with Adam Gase. So you add Deshaun Watson in there, and you utilize some of that $70 million in cap space. You probably will have to foot the bill for Deshaun Watson, but you can absorb that and still have $30-40 million in cap space on top of that to go sign playmakers for Deshaun Watson. That could be something there. The Jets need probably another linebacker, but they're getting C.J. Mosley, who they signed 2 years ago to a big contract in free agency, and he hasn't even played yet, so you're automatically getting him back on top of Quinnen Williams and Marcus May in the back end. You need another corner, you need a receiver, you need an offensive lineman and a running back, but at least with Deshaun Watson, you're not going to regress. And having a 25-year-old quarterback who's a stud in his prime, that's worth a whole lot. And it doesn't matter what you trade the Jets of those first-round picks. You're not going to get a player. Like you're not even going to draft Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 overall pick. You don't even have that pick. So you can't make an argument that you're going to get somebody better in the draft because there's not. Deshaun Watson is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. That is worth anything you can pay for it, and he's in his prime. He's 25 years old. It's not like he's 37. He's not Aaron Rodgers where you're going to get 2 more years out of him. You're going to get 10 to 15 more seasons out of Deshaun Watson. You pay whatever you can. Now, the other team that a lot of people are seeing that could be a potential landing spot for Deshaun Watson is the Miami Dolphins. And they have a rookie quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, who was fine this past season. He he was benched a couple times for Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was picked in favor of Ryan Fitzpatrick midseason, and then they benched him a couple times throughout the season. The thing with Tua is nobody knows if he has that it factor. And I think the timeline for the Dolphins got sped up when Justin Herbert turned out to be an absolute stud this season, and Joe Burrow as well was an absolute hit. When you have quarterbacks in your draft class, especially Herbert, who was picked later than Tua Tagovailoa, you got to think that the Dolphins organization feels a little bit of pressure to get quarterback right. And they have draft capital this year like they probably won't have going forward. They've got the number 3 overall pick because the Houston Texans suck so bad, and they've got their pick. So you could trade Tua, that third round pick, and that 18th overall pick, or the third pick and the 18th overall pick that you've got in Miami for Deshaun Watson. And then that could be, is Deshaun Watson worth Tua and 2 firsts? That might be the part where that may not even be enough to get him. Houston may say, we want 3 first round picks minimum. Maybe they want 4. Jamal Adams and Laramie Tunsil both fetched 2 first round picks. Jalen Ramsey fetched 2 first round picks. You got to think Deshaun at least starts at 3. Is Tua worth a first round pick today? I don't know. I think he might be worth a second, but maybe you could work that one out. And if that goes through, maybe you have to add in another second round pick. But let's say you do Tua, 2 firsts and a second, and you get Deshaun back. In Houston, you can draft Micah Parsons. You can get Jamar Chase. With those picks, you can get Penei Sewell. You can shore up that offensive line for Tua. Tua would already have Brandon Cooks. And if you re-sign Will Fuller, you'll already have receivers there. You already have David Johnson. You need a linebacker in Houston desperately. You need safety help. You need a corner. You need another pass rusher. But maybe you could get Micah Parsons in there. Maybe you take a pass rusher in the first round. But that could be a win-win for both teams. But again, the Dolphins are on the clock a bit because the Jets could be pressing to get Deshaun Watson, and you don't want to be the team with the third best quarterback in your division in 2022. That's not a recipe for success, and eventually whatever team Deshaun is on would figure it out. He is that good that he will get them to the playoffs. The third team that I think, and I think this one might be the best scenario, is the Patriots. Deshaun Watson would look good in a Patriots uniform. He fits that culture. He's a leader. He doesn't make waves off the field. Even in this whole scenario, he's been remarkably quiet, and he's held his cool throughout this whole scenario with Houston. He would fit amazingly in the Patriots organization. The only problem for the Patriots is if they could trade enough to actually get him. And I think that there's a package that would get Deshaun Watson from the Patriots. I think if they were to trade Jarrett Stidham, their first round 15th pick this year and their first next year, and then their second quarterback, J.C. Jackson, that would get Deshaun Watson. You'd get a number 1 corner. J.C. Jackson had 9 interceptions this past year. 9. He was second in the NFL to Xavier Howard. Okay, and Xavier Howard had one of the better cornerback years I've seen in a long time, including when Stephon Gilmore won Defensive Player of the Year last year. Xavier Howard, I think, had 11 interceptions. Okay, that was crazy. J.C. Jackson had 9. All right, he could be a number 1 corner for you going into next season, and then you could get the 15th pick this year. You could draft a quarterback. You could also get Jarrett Stidham. Heck, if you wanted to, you sign and trade Cam Newton in there. You say, all right, we're shipping Cam off. Maybe that gets it done. So in that case, you do Cam Newton, the 15th pick, first next year, and J.C. Jackson. You get a number 1 corner, a quarterback who's serviceable, a first-round pick that you don't have, and a first-round pick next year. And that might get it done for Deshaun Watson. So I'm going to shift to this. We have the AFC and NFC championship games this coming weekend. Now, the Buffalo Bills They escaped the Baltimore Ravens in a really disappointing divisional game last week, and the Chiefs escaped the Browns. And that game was thrilling, and Chad Henne won it for them in the fourth quarter. But now the Bills are playing the Chiefs in a game that I think a lot of people have been looking forward to for a while. This was the game that I thought would be the best AFC Championship game possible. Maybe the Ravens and the Chiefs would be also interesting, but for whatever reason, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens can't figure it out in the playoffs. They score 13 points a game when Lamar Jackson's the quarterback in the playoffs. That's not going to get it done against any team that's any good. So the Bills and the Chiefs are that's a great matchup in the AFC Championship, and it's a quarterback matchup. Assuming Patrick Mahomes can play, he took an ugly shot. Well, he didn't take an ugly shot. He took a shot against the Browns from linebacker Mack Wilson. He got up, was visibly groggy. He couldn't stand up straight. He was very concussed, and he missed a quarter and a half of that game. And if Patrick Mahomes plays, which I think would happen, I cannot see a scenario where he doesn't play. Um, the Chiefs should win this game and move on to the Super Bowl. The Bills, in towards the end of the regular season, were looking like world beaters. They were clapping teams left and right. They hung 56 points on the Miami Dolphins in Week 17. I mean, that's brutal, you know. Um, the problem with the Bills is, as we've seen in the past couple playoff games, they don't have a running game. Um, they they didn't even try to run the ball against the Baltimore Ravens. They ran only pass plays. They ran 25 pass plays in the first quarter. That's not going to beat the Chiefs. Uh, the Ravens have a great defense, but Lamar Jackson could not manufacture points. They were terrible in the red zone. They could not manufacture points in the red zone in that game, and the Bills won, scoring 17 points. That's not going to cut it against the Chiefs. The Chiefs looked like world beaters against the Browns when Patrick Mahomes was not concussed. They were moving the ball up and down the field at will. They look like the Chiefs that we all know and love and have grown to fear. Those playoff Chiefs that can just turn it on. They're the Golden State Warriors in 2018, 2017. They're unbeatable, and they know they're unbeatable, and they can sleepwalk at times, but everybody knows they're the best team left in the playoffs. Uh, the Chiefs will move on to the Super Bowl in that game. The other game in the NFC Championship is the Buccaneers and the Packers. And this is, well, you've got young quarterbacks in the AFC Championship, Mahomes versus Josh Allen. You've got Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady in the NFC Championship. It's the old heads that still have it. Tom Brady is 43 years old, working on perhaps one of the best seasons ever, considering his age, considering he's in Tampa Bay, where he doesn't have a Hall of Fame coach. He doesn't have a Hall of Fame offensive line coach. His defense isn't as good as it had been for years with New England. He is installing Tom Brady culture in Tampa Bay, and they are winning, and they're one game away from the Super Bowl. Whereas Aaron Rodgers is going to win the MVP. He passed for 48 touchdowns, which is just absurd. And he's doing it with one number one receiver and a running back and a decent offensive line. But he has one receiver. He doesn't. Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling are not even number twos. They're number three receivers. And Robert Tonyan, we didn't know who he was until this season. So Aaron Rodgers is elevating those around him, and he's playing at an all-world level. So we get Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers in the NFC Championship game in Lambeau. And it's been a storybook season, storybook playoffs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I can't see them beating the Packers in Lambeau. Aaron Rodgers is hot. He is white hot, and they are cooking in Green Bay. Matt LaFleur in that offense they have it figured out. I thought last week coming off a bye. They might be rusty. It was cold, and it seemed like maybe they would be like one step slower than normal this past week, and they were not. They hung 32 points on the number one Rams defense against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. And when you know that Aaron Rodgers is going to throw the ball to Devontae Adams as Jalen Ramsey, the best quarterback in the NFL, you would think that they would be able to stop him, and they didn't. He hung 4 touchdowns on them. They scored 32 points against the number one defense. The Buccaneers defense is not going to do any better. You're going to have to outscore Green Bay in Lambeau Field, and it might be snowing. And we've already seen what Green Bay can do in the snow. They don't slow down. So I can't see the Buccaneers outscoring Green Bay in Lambeau Field, maybe in the snow this coming Sunday. I don't see that happening. So Green Bay wins in Lambeau, and we have a Green Bay, Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl. So that'll do it from me. That has been the Benchwarmer and a Brew episode 1. Thank you all for watching. Go check out Sycamore Southern Girl if you're looking for a new brew, and I will see you in the next one.